the president has been a key supporter of women empowerment in the country.
I was the first female ADC to a sitting general.
His Excellency the President broke key barriers for me in appointing me.
This, I am proud to state, demonstrates clearly our commitment to engendering the security sector, and more importantly, our resolve to empower and to position our women in positions of leadership.
Kwa majina naitwa Noah Kibet. Naenda kimbia mita 800 kule Serbia. Please wa Kenya wenzangu, naomba mweze mkaangalia katika KBC. Tuko tayari kwenda kuwakilisha kule Serbia kama timu Kenya. Nimejipanga vizuri kwa mazoezi na jiamini. Anajua nitakimbia vizuri, kwa hayo tu. Asanteni.
Welcome to Prime Edition. I am Cynthia Nyamai. Now tonight the EACC makes a big move. We have the details for you. Jackson Kibor passes away. We also have that story for you. And today we are talking about the business of cassava. You do not want to miss that part of business and sports with Karen Kibet, who is on standby. But first, let's have the highlights. You have a case to answer. Anti-corruption watchdog points guns at 2 governors.
Let the consumer climb to the hill or to the tallest building and scream, so that those in authority realize that they need cushioning by those subsidies that should make them pay less.
Matatu Association to commuters, be ready to shoulder the burden of fuel price hike. Boda, the good, the bad and the ugly, we tell you the origin of this mode of transport. Come closer. Remember, I would like to hear from you. On our social media. Now, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission (EACC) has asked the Director of Public Prosecution (DPP) to open charges against Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru and Lamu's Fahim Twaha for allegedly embezzling public funds. EACC Chief Executive Officer Twalib Mbarak said the commission has watertight cases against the governors and other state officers currently under the commission's radar in their fight against corruption. The commission dismissed claims by the Kenya-Kwanza leaders that the anti-graft body is under state capture. Ben Chumba has the report.
Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru and Lamu Governor Fahim Twaha are among 3 governors set to face corruption charges as the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission (EACC) cracks the whip against state officers suspected of embezzling public funds.
We have about 3 governors that we have recommended to be charged. They are from both sides of the political divide.
With the 700 million shillings NYS graft case against Governor Waiguru set to be heard from 20th to 22nd March this year, the anti-graft agency says another separate corruption case against her is before the Director of Public Prosecutions for Perusa.
We have investigated, we have found facts. Let the DPP give his consent, and we believe our cases against many governors, they are watertight.
EACC Chief Executive Officer Twalib Mbarak further dismissing claims by the Kenya-Kwanza leaders that the anti-graft body was discharging its mandate at the behest of the executive.
EACC is a very neutral body. We are a commission that is composed of all ethnic communities in this country, whether they are on this side of the political angle or the other side. So we work professionally.
The forthcoming elections renders the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) prone to criticism for clearing individuals who have integrity questions as envisaged in Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Currently, there is a very worrying trend in the country. If you go about MCAs, about MPs, there are quite a number of people who've got questionable characters, morally, not legally, and they are glorified by the public. And these are the fellows that in August, they'll be running your county.
And what EACC will do for us is to give us the information of a particular candidate. But as he said, it is until you're convicted in court. So it ends there. It is upon the parties, it's upon the people of Kenya to decide.
The leader spoke in Nairobi during the annual general meeting of the Eastern Africa Association of Anti-Corruption Authorities (IACA), hosted by Kenya and attended by member states including Uganda, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Djibouti, Burundi and South Sudan. During the meeting, the member states agreed to build and strengthen institutions in order to effectively fight corruption in the region. With exactly 144 days left before the August 9 polls, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission (EACC) maintains that it will not be distracted by politicians from delivering on its mandate, and that is to eradicate the theft of public resources. Ben Chumba, Prime Edition.
For fare hikes owing to increased fuel prices. MOA Chairperson Simon Kimutai says for a long time PSV fares have remained unchanged despite the high cost of doing business. Matatu operators in Kisii County have called meanwhile on the government to review the fuel prices downwards to ease the mobility of people and goods.
We'll pass the cost to the consumer. Let the consumer climb to the hill or to the tallest building and scream so that those in authority realize that they need cushioning by those subsidies that should make them pay less. We facilitate economic activities. If today we called off our services, maybe none of you would go to work if you are using a matatu.
Kila kitu kinakuja na matatu na gari. Kwa hivyo itakuwa affection itakuwa across the board. Na nadhani ya kwamba wateja wetu watahangaika kwa sababu msimu huu hakuna mtu a travel, kila mtu ana travel.
To lower the prices of fuel and everything concerning oil so that kila kitu kikisafirishwa kinasafirishwa kwa bei ya chini, sukari rudi chini, kila kitu rudi chini, hata familia zetu zifurahie.
The Registrar of Political Parties, Ann Nderito, has urged aspirants seeking to vie for various elective seats to weigh their options before deciding whether to seek nomination for political parties or vie independently. Nderito, who spoke in Nairobi during a training for aspirants on election preparedness, said the Political Parties Amendment Bill, if passed by Parliament, will deal a blow to persons seeking election independently after losing in party primaries. She said her office will use the integrated political parties management system to align party registers once nominations are complete.
35 days to April 22nd, when political parties are scheduled to provide the final list of aspirants. The Registrar of Political Parties, Ann Nderito, is cautioning aspirants against making rushed decisions.
True, there's a window of 10 days as the law and timelines remain right now. But you are told this morning that there's a bill that is there for Elections Act that is likely to close that window. My advice to you, dear aspirants, if you want to be an independent candidate, decide now. And you come and clear you and give you a sable.
According to Nderito, the move will also reduce the burden of post-nomination disputes that have characterized party nominations in the past.
The Office of Registrar of Political Parties is when you participate in party nominations. And after that, unaharibia party jina. Nasema hao wamenifanya vibaya sana. That's why I'm going as a independent candidate. If you do not believe in party processes, the best thing is you go as a independent candidate and you decide that early, so that we make sure that our democracy is growing.
This as aspirants sought clarification on reuse of party symbols used in previous elections.
Unajipanga every election. Uchaguzi ikiisha unakuja unatafuta symbol ingine, because in between, because yours is for purposes of election, but for party is for posterity, because it identify as an institution with that symbol. So the law does not allow you to keep that symbol for life as an individual.
Others raising divergent opinions on the proposals by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to lock out those who lose in nomination from contesting.
You had maybe, let's say, even 6 months behind, or even from January to now. As a serious politician, by now you would have made up your mind which political party or which way do you want to go.
We need to have a stand. If the nominations are fair, free and fair, it's good to have a stand. If you are in this party, you need to even work for the party also. And as you work for the party, you're also working for your people. So
very, very possible somebody has had injustice being done to them. If you lock them out totally, you'll have, it's not him you're blocking out, you're locking out people who have decided to give their sovereign power to a certain individual. Now you lock him up totally. I would actually oppose that and let us retain the status the way it is in the Constitution right now.
The one-day sensitization forum, organized by the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, brought together over 500 aspirants. For Prime Edition, I'm Gladys Mungai.
Love them or hate them, but they are here with us. This is a story of the Boda. In a 4-part series, we'll look at this subsector. Just when did it start? How big is it? And what are the impacts in society today? The good, the bad, and the ugly. We give you the Boda story.
A live testimony of a town so determined to hold on to its medal, an award achieved more by default. Busia, Boda town, the undisputed birthplace of Bodas, now a household name across Kenya.
Nakumbuka mwaka 2000 nikiwa naendesha baiskeli. Nilianza na sisi tunaita Kenya-Runda. Kenya-Runda ni ule ambaye alikuwa anabeba mizigo. Kuna ile gunia mrefu ambaye inaitwa ya mlolongo, wimbi, mahindi na muogo. Kwa hivyo nilianza na ile kazi mwaka 2002, nikawa nafanya hiyo kazi wakati undersize marufuku ikitoka Uganda ya samaki ikanitoa kwa hiyo biashara ya kubeba mizigo. Museveni masharti ikawa ngumu, watu wa baiskeli tukaanza kuteswa kulingana na ile kazi tulikuwa tunafanya. Nikaanza kazi ya bodaboda ya watu.
Busia is approximately 350 kilometers from Kenya's capital Nairobi and about 190 kilometers from Uganda's capital Kampala. Incidentally, the poor road network in this famous border point town has naturally fueled the growth of the boda business.
Naona kazi ya baiskeli kwa kusema kweli, jinsi chairman amesema, hiyo kazi ilikuwa ngumu sana. Kuendesha baiskeli, kubeba watu, kuna milima unapanda, milima na mabonde. Hiyo kazi ukienda nyumbani, huyu bodaboda mwanaume anashindwa majukumu. Kwa hivyo nikaona pikipiki ilipotokea ni kitu kama gari na ni kitu inakusaidia, ikawa ni kazi rahisi, nikaona pikipiki ni afadhali.
The public service motorcycle transport, commonly known as Boda, emerged along this Kenya-Uganda border in the 1960s. That time, only bicycles were in use. The bicycles will be used to ferry traders smuggling goods along the Kenya-Uganda border, hence the coining of the word Boda. It is an adaptation of the English double word Boda, which cyclists shouted when beckoning passengers.
The border business ilianzia Busia border to border, where watu walikuwa wanabeba wateja kutoka upande wa Uganda wakicross wakileta Kenya, wakitoa Kenya wakirudisha pale Uganda. So ilianza na baiskeli.
Decades later, in 1990s, came an upgrade, the motorcycles. The motorbikes were not as many due to high costs of importation. The turnaround in the influx of motorcycles came in 2008 when President Mwai Kibaki's government zero-rated duty on motorcycles below 250cc. Bodas were initially meant to address youth unemployment. So how is the Boda subsector like 14 years after the zero rating of duty? Has the subsector lived up to the government's expectations? Has it caused more harm than good? All that coming up after a short break.
Experience a new history and setting of new records in Stark Arena from the 18th to 20th of March 2022 at the World Athletics Indo Championships.
Pretty tight out of the blocks, and Coleman now moving away. Christian Coleman challenged late there by Bromell.
More than 1,000 of the world's best athletes will compete for 96 medals across 24 finals during the 3 days of competition in Belgrade, Serbia. Kenya has a formidable team, 10 athletes, amongst them Africa's fastest man, Ferdinand Omanyala. It is going to be a blast, live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
This Friday on My Culture, we retell the tales of the Taita community here in Taita Taveta County. We are in the Mofunja Ngomenyi shrines. We will tell you what it took for us to be here and what this skull caves means to the community. I'm Juni Karisa Mbele.
According to the 2019 Task Force on Motorcycle Transport Reforms, as of February 2018, exactly 10 years after the zero rating of duty on motorcycles, there were 1,393,390 registered motorcycles. 4 years later, the numbers have grown immensely.
In 2013, when President Kenyatta took the oath of office, we probably had less than 300,000 Boda riders in the country. Today, there are about 2.4 million. That tells you about the growth of the sector.
The National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA, the Police Commission and Boda associations estimate that the sector employs about 1 million riders, with an aggregate annual earnings for riders estimated at 219 billion shillings.
There are 22 million rides, Boda rides every day. Multiply 22 million, the basic Boda ride will cost you 50 shillings. Multiply 22 million times 50. That is at the very bare minimum, that's how much money moves in that sector.
According to the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, there are 21 motorcycle assemblers in Kenya, 6 of whom assemble completely knocked down kits. The main assemblers have invested approximately $10 million in the country. The industry sells approximately 125,000 motorcycles annually. Approximately 10,000 motorcycles are registered in a month.
We applaud the many wonderful young men, and in some cases women, who ride these motorbikes and do great service to this country.
The Task Force on Motorcycle Transport Reforms noted that majority of Boda riders or operators are males at 97.4%, while female riders constitute 2.6%. On age, majority of the riders are in the age range of 26 to 33 years at 38.2%, followed by those falling within the 18 to 25 years age group at 30.0%. On education levels, 43.7% have primary education, 42.5% have secondary school education, 5.7% have middle-level college education, 1.7% have university education, with 6.3% having no education.
It is still true that this sector holds a great promise for our country and for our youth, creating employment, making sure that our young people are able to grow and are able to move even from boda, naingia matatu, you can even go higher.
The Boda subsector in Kenya largely operates without effective regulation and control. The seemingly ineffective governance of the sector has occasioned increasing cases of Boda related accidents, crimes and impunity.
The sector grew faster than the regulatory frameworks. So you have no established schools, you have no established certification system, you have no established way of processing these people.
Security officers are stretched in efforts to keep order in the subsector. For instance, the ratio of traffic police officers and other law enforcement agencies, including NTSA and county government traffic marshals, disproportionately leans against law enforcement officers. In Nairobi, for example, there are approximately 700 traffic police officers who enforce law in respect to all forms of traffic, though there are approximately 300,000 Bodas. The ratio of police officers and Bodas is therefore 1 to 430. According to the task force, the informal and unregulated nature of Bodas connotes greater risks to public safety.
The good, the bad and the ugly continues tomorrow. Now, the government has put on notice on errant practitioners in the built environment over professional malpractices. Public Works Principal Secretary Solomon Kitungu says the government is in the process of overhauling the building code to deal with construction risk management in the built environment. The draft National Building Code 2020 will replace the outdated 1968 Building Code, which is blamed for the sorry state of the construction industry in Kenya.
According to the National Construction Authority, Kenya has recorded more than 50 building collapses since the year 2010. Last year, Kenya witnessed more than 20 buildings collapse in various parts of the country, killing more than 20 people and wounding hundreds. NCA says 66% of buildings that collapse are those already completed but lack proper maintenance. The government is now planning to deal with the issue of professional negligence through the overhaul of the building code.
We have actually an MOU which is currently being reviewed by the Office of the Attorney General. Once that MOU is signed between the National Construction Authority and Borax and then Institute of Engineers, then it will help in coordinating the supervision of buildings on the ground.
The draft National Building Code 2020, which is before the National Assembly, is aimed at preventing buildings from collapsing, saving lives and property. The new law requires developers to engage a registered contractor with the technical capability to deliver a project in all construction activities.
This will help us to undertake the final stages required for parliamentary approval. The main objectives of the building code is to promote order, safety, and the health of persons in or about construction works.
Public Works Principal Secretary Solomon Kitungu says errant professionals have tainted the name and the image of the various professionals in the built environment.
When a building collapsed at Iruilu, that building, for example, had been suspended when it was at the ground floor, and it collapsed when it was at the 9th floor. And if you can have that kind of thing, now you wonder, us as professionals, where were we?
Speakers at the event challenged local contractors to increase their uptake of sustainable building technologies in order to reduce cases of poorly built structures.
We are going to industrial-based system that we are getting building materials from the factory straight to the site. Because you can imagine if we continue mining our stones, then we are going to end up with endless quarries, and that is interfering with the environment.
Kenya has officially opened an embassy in Jakarta, Indonesia, as the two countries seek to deepen their bilateral ties. Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Rachel Omamo has said diplomatic relations between Nairobi and Jakarta have broadened over the years with cooperation in various fields and including trade and investment, agriculture, fisheries, defense and security, ICT, among others. Indonesia's news agency Antara and the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation has also signed an agreement on news exchange and technical cooperation.
Kenya's main exports to Indonesia include tea, coffee, tobacco, vegetables, leather and metallic salts. In 2020, trade between Kenya and Indonesia stood at 60 billion shillings, with Kenya's exports being at 813 billion, while imports from Indonesia were 59 billion shillings. Lack of an embassy has been one of the challenges that Kenyan exporters have faced to articulate their issues. Indonesia opened its embassy here in Kenya in 1982. Speaking during an official opening of the Kenyan embassy, Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Rachel Omamo has said Indonesia is a high potential partner in Kenya's national development agenda, particularly in trade and industrialization, security and police cooperation, finance, investments, universal healthcare and urban development.
Will also open opportunities for you. You'll have closer access to consular services, closer opportunities to advance businesses and partnerships, closer opportunities to engage in people-to-people discourse. We want you to be our front runners, those who go before us and show us the way.
During the meeting, 5 legal instruments were signed to promote collaborations between various organizations in the two countries. Indonesia foreign ministers said the two countries are expected to help reinvigorate their bilateral relations and reinforce the partnership between Nairobi and Jakarta by establishing the framework for sustainable cooperation based on reciprocity and mutual benefit for both parties.
Opening of the embassy of Kenya in Jakarta marks a new chapter of Indonesia-Kenya relation to further forge closer bilateral relation in many mutually beneficial sectors. And this also further cements Indonesia's enhanced engagement with African nations, as Ambassador of Morocco mentioned in recent years, particularly in the field of economic ties and in line with the Indonesia-Africa Forum and the Indonesia-Africa Infrastructure Dialogue.
Kenya and Indonesia have a long historical relationship that dates back to the Africa First Asia African or Afro-Asian Conference in Bandung, Indonesia. In April 2018, Kenya participated in the first ever Asia African Forum in Bali, Indonesia.
Deputy President William Ruto says he will create a 50 billion shillings fund to capitalize the small and medium enterprise sector if he ascends to the presidency after the August polls. Speaking during a meeting with Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Ruto said a bulk of the funds will go towards advancing affordable credit to the SMEs whom he says are grappling with liquidity challenges.
Deputy President William Ruto says his government will seek to expand the SME sector by liquidating startups, especially those in the agriculture space. The DP says high interest charged by most financial institutions have financially crippled startups, reducing their margins, thus inhibiting their growth. To liquidate the SME sector, the DP says will create a 50 billion shilling fund that will advance credit to SMEs at lower interest rates.
Provide them good space for them to do their enterprise, build good markets, make sure that they have a decent space to operate from, make sure that there is law that protects their business. They are not running from Kanjo and the rest of the guys. Those people can move from $2-3 to $6-7 per day.
Ruto reckons agriculture is underfunded and his government will ensure farmers are also adequately financed and facilitated to increase production. He also says farmers will be linked to additional international markets to increase their earnings and reduce the country's food import bill that stands at 170 billion shillings.
Increase their productivity and increase their income. They will also become a market for the people in the manufacturing sitting in this room, the people in all the other spaces sitting in this room, and that increased productivity creates opportunities for the people sitting in this room for agro-processing, value addition, and the whole chain going up.
Among other key reforms, the DP targets to stimulate economic growth is increasing an SSF contribution that he says will boost the country's social security and create a resource pool that the government can tap into as an alternative to expensive foreign commercial loans.
The whole parliament in Dodoma was built using their money from social security. And they not only use that money to fund their own development, they also benefit their own people. The interest we are paying for loans to other countries because we have borrowed their savings, we can pay that interest to our own Kenyans if we borrowed from their savings as a government.
In his first 100 days, Ruto says he will digitize the Kenya Revenue Authority revenue collection that claims will net the taxman an additional 250 billion shillings annually. Benson Rioba for Prime Edition.
And now to the corporate briefs, where Cooperative Bank has reported a 59% growth in pre-tax profit to 22.6 billion shillings in 2021. This represents a 16.5 billion after-tax profit compared to 10.8 billion shillings reported in 2020. The bank says total operating income grew by 12% from 54 billion to 60 billion shillings in 2021. Total non-interest income grew by 11% from 17.5 billion to 19.4 billion shillings. More on this plus other stories in our corporate briefs next.
The bank group registered a sustained growth in total assets, which grew to 580 billion Kenyan shillings, which is an 8% growth from 537 billion Kenyan shillings in the preceding year. Investments in government securities grew to 184.1 billion Kenyan shillings from 161.9 billion shillings in 2020. Customer deposits grew by 8% to 407.7 billion shillings from 378.6 billion shillings in 2020. The net loans and advances grew by 8% to 310.2 billion shillings from 286.6 billion shillings in the year 2020. The bank moved 94% of all customer transactions to alternative delivery channels, mobile banking, 561 ATMs, internet banking, and over 26,000 Coop kwa Jirani agency banking terminals. Elsewhere, National Bank of Kenya has posted 1.1 billion Kenyan shillings in profit after tax for the full year of 2021. This represents a 431% increase from 2020, driven by increased income from loan interests and foreign exchange trading, coupled with lower loan loss provisions. NBK Managing Director Paul Russo attributed the financial results to the bank's focus on its strategic initiatives, which are anchored on customer experience. Operating income increased by 15% to 10.2 billion. The low levels of credit provisions also resulted in an increase in profit before tax of 330%. During the year, net interest income grew by 18% from the previous year to 8.3 billion. Total assets grew by 16% to 146 billion, majorly from net loans and advances, which were up by 12 billion to 67 billion. The growth in assets was supported by a corresponding increase in customer deposits of 6.7 billion shillings to 105.8 billion and deposits from banks by 8.1 billion to 21.5 billion as of 31st December 2021. Finally, Kipkelion Coffee Cooperative Society has become the first society to export coffee to South Korea, fetching millions for its farmers. Last month, the society shipped more than 134 metric tons of coffee valued at more than 110 million shillings to Good Beans of South Korea. Farmers will be paid 116 shillings per kg of coffee sold to the society, which is almost double the 76 shillings per kilo usually paid to coffee farmers for commodities sold through the Nairobi Coffee Exchange or by the local coffee marketers. Kipkelion Society is made up of more than 95,000 farmers from Kericho, Nandi and Bomet counties. Last year, Kipkelion Brokerage Company Limited received approval from the Capital Markets Authority to market their own coffee under the new coffee regulations. Hibak Saeed for Prime Edition.
The beach product in Diani, Kale County is ideal for business meetings and leisure owing to a 20-kilometer powder white sand beach. Tonight on Magical Scenes, we highlight attractions in Diani.
Diani Beach in Kwale County remains one of the places to go time and again. Whether it is a rainy or sunny season, Diani is always ready to usher you to a tropical holiday. The region prides in a 20-kilometer stretch of white sandy beaches characterized by swaying palm trees, undersea life and breeze from the blue Indian Ocean, among others. Communities down at the coastal part of Kenya are known to be among the few communities still holding tight to their traditions, from dress code, language, and even cookery skills. A reason why this region continues to earn numbers in tourism. The long and wide stretch of the beach is ideal for families and especially the younger travelers. For adventure seekers, Diani Beach is one of the best places in Africa for kite surfing, scuba diving, and sand bathing.
Like there's always something new that you've seen, you've done. It's never a dull moment in the coastal region. It's like in Diani, they're so clean, they're beautiful, not so crowded. Like you feel it's like a home away from home.
Beaches that have been voted to be the best in the world, best destination beaches in the world, beating the likes of the Caribbean. We have beat the likes of the Americas. We are the best in Kwale and in the South Coast. There are a lot of things you can do in the South Coast. We can go for scuba diving. We can go for the marine exploration to see the marine wildlife in the South Coast, especially in Masini. You can go swim with the dolphins.
Business persons would opt for conferencing by the beach and appreciate the beauty of Mother Nature. The beach line has a number of resorts, hotels, and apartments, leaving one lost for choice on accommodation.
We have flight packages even for the region, Uganda, Ethiopia. People are coming, and in these 7 weeks we have tailored programs for children to keep them busy, the teens, the babies, the very small ones, adults, females, and we've got quite a number of activities, not just at the water park, but also on the beach, in our gardens.
Irene Mchuma Udim, Magical Sense in the county of Kwale.
Let's take a short break, but when we come back, Farmways, we're talking about agriculture and cassava business. Coming up shortly.
Attention family.
Once beaten, twice shy.
I am here to make money, so you better get your act together.
I want nothing to do with the company. Not now, never.
I need to think about it.
Don't take long. You're forgetting Amanjuguna.
Have you been living in a hole or something? No. What choice does he have?
The president has been a key supporter of women empowerment in the country.
I was the first female ADC to a sitting general.
His Excellency the President broke key barriers for me in appointing me.
This, I am proud to state, demonstrates clearly our commitment to engendering the security sector, and more importantly, our resolve to empower and to position our women in positions of leadership.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723 892 654 or 0734 780 124.
Welcome back. Now, the private sector has been encouraged to help commercialize climate-smart technologies to encourage farmers adopt smart agriculture. Regional research organizations say there is a low uptake of climate-smart adoption technologies among smallholder farmers due to high costs and lack of access to the technologies, with the public-private partnership touted to scale up adoption of the technologies.
Government estimates it needs 3.5 billion shillings in the next 5 years to enable farmers adapt to the effects of climate change. Researchers now say to effectively mitigate and adapt to climate change, linkages must be created for farmers to access modern farming technologies, including cultivation of hybrid seeds, to ensure the agriculture sector is vibrant throughout the year.
These technologies and innovation are accessible and affordable by private sector.
And is now that we have the technologies and now that we have the partnership for delivery, how do we deliver this thing and scale up this?
The private sector has been encouraged to help commercialize agriculture climate-smart technologies to ensure farmers adopt good practices in light of frequent erratic weather patterns.
Challenge that we are having, that's why we are here today, is those technologies that have been developed is not going to the right people who are supposed to take them to the farmers, and that's the private sector.
Regional research bodies are being advised to amalgamate research data to ensure crucial agriculture information is available to farmers.
Is really focusing on is how do you bring data, both climate, weather, soil, agronomy, crop, livestock, husbandry, bring them together. This may not be, there's no need to centralize them where it's not applicable, but you can link them wherever they are with an API and make a decision and develop a data hub.
Data sharing is also mooted to reduce cases of duplication of research in the region that has curtailed the research of modern data, leading to low productivity.
Content creators are turning to online learning communities and video sharing platforms as a means of acquiring new skills without having to undergo formal in-school lectures. Tonight on Tech One, our reporter Alan Aoko visited an upcoming production company whose entire team is adopting online learning technologies to social create impact stories.
Well, can you hold this for me here? So you reach there.
Striking the right balance between meeting client needs and keeping the team updated on the latest skills for use in execution of work is what has kept Farmer Mohammed, the founder of Studio 63, in business.
The way millennials use media versus the way Gen Z uses media is completely different. And this is gauged on how they learn. And these new generations, it's obviously seen with all of these applications like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and how they adapt technology.
Mohammed has discovered that her organization would advance through online learning communities like YouTube or Skillshare, which provide a space and a structure for people to align around a shared goal. They connect people and organizations while holding members accountable to a common agenda. These communities enable participants to share results and learn from each other, thereby improving their abilities and make professional progress.
A lot of the times we utilize YouTube tutorials, we utilize Skillshare classes, and we just sit down, each one of us, it doesn't matter who it is, we all just sit down and take courses on animation, on graphic design, on motion graphics, on video editing, and how to utilize After Effects.
But it's one thing to use technology and another to apply it effectively. As technology grows, it means one has to quickly change with the times or end up losing to the competition.
Someone has capitalized, I'm capitalizing on someone's talent here, and they are helping the company. They're not just in this box. And that's the idea of innovation, right? Is to think out of the box and utilizing someone's skill, but also harnessing that skill, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're a writer, you're not just writing, you can do more, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
The fruits of online learning communities are clear, with upcoming content creators able to produce content of varying nature. From promos to documentaries to animation and articles, the industry is experiencing a eureka moment caused by self-online learning, where the majority of courses focus on interaction rather than lecturing, with the primary goal of learning by completing a project for people who want to learn from educational videos. This means that one can actually, for example, practice rigging studio equipment with a colleague at the office without having to formally enter a lecture hall for a certificate on the subject. Of course, this means that one has to have that intrinsic motivation within themselves to do what they mean to do in what they are working on. And now, maybe perhaps, Mohammed, tell us, what are you working on, and the skills that you've gathered, how are they helping you in what you're doing right now?
Well, I'm working on a script for the Mama Ibado charity, which is an organization that's based in Isiolo and Kakamega. When I came on board in S63, I came on board primarily as a writer. And my writing skills have also improved in that sense, because I used to write articles and essays and short stories prior to all of this. I wasn't familiar with journalistic writing.
And the advice for future young content creators?
And I think that everyone should be able to teach this upon themselves and just pick up a camera, start recording, watch YouTube tutorials, do what you can to just learn on your own.
And since we've all been wrapped up in the misfortune of the pandemic, it doesn't need to be a mystery wrapped in suspense inside an enigma. You can always, of course, tap into technology to get that skill that you are honing for. Alanauko, take one.
Anaoka, always passionate on ICT stories. Now, moving on, Kenya and Tanzania are fostering bilateral ties which have boosted the economy of the two nations. Bilateral trade meetings between Kenya and Tanzania aimed at eliminating the inconvenience faced by traders in the country, so 10 more trade barriers resolved in an effort to grow the trade between the two EAC member states. In this week's edition of EAC Integration, Teresa Mutai tells us how the government interactions are opening up business in the two countries.
The Kenya-Tanzania bilateral trade hit $905.5 million for the period January to November 2021, according to the Central Bank of Kenya. Kenya's imports from Tanzania exceeded exports by nearly a third in 9 months through September 2021. Kenya imports from Tanzania stood at $501 million and exports at $403.9 million. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan and President Uhuru Kenyatta in May last year met and agreed to solve issues that hindered trade between the two countries. 56 issues were reported to have been resolved in 2021, prompting to the growth of trade between the two countries by 38% to $765 million. Ministers and other government officials met for the follow-up meeting, where 10 more issues were resolved, while 14 outstanding issues are expected to be resolved by June this year. During the meeting, 30 issues were put forward for discussions and 10 of them were resolved, including 6 presented by Tanzania and 4 presented by Kenya. The 4 issues presented by Kenya that were resolved include delayed response of code share by the Tanzania Aeronautical Authorities, denial of designation for Kenya's jumbo jet to operate passenger air services to Tanzania, restriction of free movement of engineers to Tanzania, and tour vans dropping tourists on the Tanzanian side of Namanga one-stop border post charged 5,000 shillings. The resolved issues presented by Tanzania include delay of clearance of goods due to scanning procedure, delays in issuance of import permits for dairy products, cumbersome procedures by the Kenya Revenue Authority, difficulties experienced by Taifa Gas Limited in investing in Kenya, challenges in obtaining work for Tanzania professionals, and requirement of COVID-19 vaccination certificates for citizens of Tanzania to travel to Kenya by air. The next bilateral trade meeting will be held during the second week of July 2022 in Kenya. Reporting for Prime Edition, I am Teresa Mutai.
A group of farmers in Busia County have ventured into cassava value addition as a way of minimizing post-harvest losses and increasing their earnings. The farmers, who now make an assortment of products from cassava, including flour, crisps and animal feeds, are looking to expand their markets beyond Busia.
Cassava is an important crop for smallholder farmers as it's less labor-intensive and drought-resistant. Despite its high nutritional value over the years, Busia residents have been viewing cassava as a poor man's food, with the crop mostly grown for subsistence use. Cassava roots contain a lot of moisture, and once harvested, they can rot quickly, with the fresh roots barely lasting for 2 days. To minimize cases of post-harvest losses, farmers in parts of Busia County have started value addition venture.
Bitterness, cyanide acid inside it reduced by fermentation process. And then after that, after fermentation, you clean, you wash it, you crush, and then you put on the sun. After drying, you prepare for ugali.
The farmers process cassava to produce snacks, flour, and animal feeds. Before processing, the cassava is graded into 2 types, the bitter and sweet varieties, to inform the processing methods.
Varieties we have is local, like this one here, Magana. We have Magana, is a bitter variety that we know. Magana, it takes long to mature.
Since they started the cassava venture, the farmers, who mainly comprise of women, have been overwhelmed by the demand of processed cassava bread and crisps. This has forced them to source for produce from neighboring regional farms to satisfy their demand. The farmers say their expertise in processing cassava has seen them gain loyal customers and are seeking to expand their businesses to other regions. The cassava processing, they say, has also reduced cases of aflatoxin contamination in the area. Benson Juba for FarmWise.
Experience a new history and setting of new records in Stark Arena from the 18th to 20th of March 2022 at the World Athletics Indo Championships.
Pretty tight out of the blocks, and Coleman now moving away. Christian Coleman challenged late there by Brumel.
More than 1,000 of the world's best athletes will compete for 96 medals across 24 finals during the 3 days of competition in Belgrade, Serbia. Kenya has a formidable team, 10 athletes, amongst them Africa's fastest man, Ferdinand Omanyala. It is going to be a blast, live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
A very good evening to you. I do hope you're holding up well. Let's now take a look at what's making headlines in the world of sports. My name is Karen Kibet. Now, the Serbian athletics president Veselin Jefrosimovic has hailed the athletes who showed up to take part in the 2022 World Indoor Championship, which kicks off on Friday afternoon. Veselin noted that the event will bring together athletes from different places to display different talents. He also noted that the event will go on as planned and safety measures will be applied in all disciplines. 8 of the 10 Kenyan athletes who travel to Belgrade will compete on day 1, which begins on Friday. However, Ferdinand Omanyala and Abel Kipsang, who will miss in action on day 1 with their events, the men's 60 meters and 1500 meters respectively, being held on day 2. The 2022 World Indoor Championship will be televised live only on KBC Channel 1 from Friday afternoon through to Sunday.
World Indoor Championships was back in Birmingham in 2018. We all know why we've had to wait so long for the next edition, and the world has been through some pretty trying times and it remains a pretty complicated place.
Now on to matters KPL. Kenya Premier League leaders Kakamega Homeboys got back to winning ways after registering a 1-0 win over Ulinzi Stars. In another match, Bandari secured the 5th spot on the table after a 1-0 victory over Nairobi City Stars. Spanish side Barcelona will be hoping to secure a win, which will see them advance to the Europa League quarterfinals when they travel to take on Galatasaray in their round of 16 second leg match tonight. Meanwhile, Chelsea advanced to the quarterfinals of the Champions League with a 2-1 victory over Lille last night.
European